Israel has notified the United Nations that it's cancelling its agreement with the main aid agency for Palestinian refugees. Millions of Palestinians, including nearly all of Gaza's population, depend on UNRWA. The UN warns cancelling the agreement will worsen the humanitarian catastrophe with dire consequences across the occupied territories. Juliette Touma is the UNRWA Global Director of Communications, and she joins us now from Amman. Many thanks for being with us. Can you outline for us just how this ban is going to affect UNRWA's operations in Gaza and the occupied territories?
Thanks for having me. Look, at the immediate level, there is absolutely no impact. Our humanitarian operation in Gaza continues to the degree possible with the many restrictions that we have, but it's on. Our programs in the West Bank, including East Jerusalem, are also happening as usual. For example, our schools that provide learning for 50,000 boys and girls across the West Bank are open today.
They're open today, but the ban is going to come into place, isn't it, within 30 days? What will happen then?
I think, if I understand correctly, the ban is effective in 90 days, 90 days.
My apologies.
So that's okay. It's a race against time for member states around the world to work with the state of Israel to not implement this ban. You see, 2 million people in Gaza depend on UNRWA for their sheer survival, including food assistance and primary health care. The question is, who is going to replace UNRWA? And in the context of when this brutal war finally comes to an end, who will provide education and learning to what we estimate is 400,000 boys and girls who go to UNRWA school? Who? What is the plan? We don't have any answer to that.
No, because Israel says that it will work with alternative agencies, alternative organizations. But who would they be?
Right. So, for example, any United Nations agency that has education on its mandate is not able to run schools like UNRWA does. You see, we are the only United Nations agency in the world that runs 700 schools, that provides education to more than 500,000 boys and girls. No other United Nations agency is capable to do this. And in the absence of a political solution for Palestinian refugees, there is no alternative to UNRWA. So it's easy to talk. The question is, what are you going to do about the ban, and how are you going to fill the void? You meaning the state of Israel.
And are you hearing any outrage about this so far? Because ultimately it damages the credibility of the United Nations.
Oh, absolutely. This is not an attack against UNRWA. It's a hate to multilateralism. We have received extensive and excellent solidarity over the past few days when this bill was passed at the Israeli parliament, including from United Nations agencies, offices, from the Secretary General, from many, many, many member states, all our donors included. Now is the time to translate that solidarity into action. There has to be work with the state of Israel to undo this and not to implement the bill and put it forward. I have to say this very clearly. The consequences of implementing such a bill are going to be catastrophic. They are going to have the lives of people who are already hanging by the thread at a serious, serious risk. We're talking about 2 million people who rely for their sheer survival on UNRWA.
Now, Israel claims that hundreds of UNRWA employees were involved in October 7th attacks. Now, the UN investigation into that ended with just 9 out of some 13,000 people being fired, essentially disproving that claim, and yet it persists in passing this bill, labelling it a terrorist organisation.
Well, not even that. The United Nations investigation that was done externally to UNRWA said that in the case of 9 staff members where the allegations were received, particular about the participation in the horrific 7th of October attack, that if the evidence that was provided to the investigation, if that evidence was authenticated or corroborated, there might be the possibility that indeed those staff members have participated. Despite that, the Commissioner General of UNRWA decided to terminate the contracts of these staff members. Why did he do that? For fear of any interruption to the life-saving humanitarian operation that is run by UNRWA inside the Gaza Strip. So these were allegations, and it's important we all remember that.
Now, all this is happening at a time that the UN is demanding Israel get more humanitarian aid into Gaza. If I've got this time frame right, it was to be within 30 days, and that deadline comes within 2 weeks. So how does this sit with that? Are we going to see the US finally taking the hard line with Israel?
That I don't know. What I do know is just before coming on air, we just looked at the latest stats for October. And in October, on average, every day, there were only just over 30 trucks of humanitarian aid allowed into Gaza. Imagine 30 trucks as opposed to 500 trucks that used to come in. That's 6% of the actual needs of the population. A population that is already starving. Many, many people there are sick. There's plenty of women, older people, and children. There has got to be more sent into Gaza, and also to allow UNRWA to run and administrate that assistance that comes into Gaza.
Juliette Touma, we appreciate you taking the time to come on to Al Jazeera to highlight the critical role that UNRWA plays in Gaza and the occupied territories. Many thanks.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.